Welcome back. We have extra time, everybody. Greg Wallace alongside Shep and Jason, the producer, as ever. And today we are talking about the Eastern Conference playoff matchups, and we're going to start with what has become one of the best playoff rivalries this league has seen, especially in the last 10 years. I think they've met 7 times in the playoffs just in the last 8 or 9 years alone. New England and Chicago. Chicago didn't quite dominate New England this year, as you might have expected with all the struggles that New England had. But what does Chicago need to do to actually get this series win?
I don't think Chicago dominated anyone this season.
That's a good point.
But what they did do is get results, whether it was a draw or a win. They were constantly getting results, and they were finding ways to win games, just like they did against Chivas. With it was an own goal, but it was a great ball by Blanco. It's the little things that Chicago does that they have guys when the ball falls to them in the box, they can put it away. Right. McBride, Blanco, Rolfe. They're guys with composure, and I think in playoffs, especially in this series with New England, I think it's going to be low-scoring games, possibly 0-0, 1-0, and I think Chicago is a team that can finish those chances.
I agree, but I love New England, and I'll tell you why. They're playing with house money. They have nothing to lose, everything to gain. I think Chicago has the better individual players. I think New England playing better as a team, so they're going to try and shut down the weapons you talked about. Right. Hope to get a goal or two on a set piece. Well,
certainly the back line for New England is a very cohesive unit.
Yeah, they definitely played most of the season together, and I think even though you have young guys in Barnes and Alston kind of offset by the veteran of Heaps, it's interesting. They've played a lot of games together. Yeah, so we look at rookies, and are they really rookies anymore at this point in the season? They've kind of seen everybody. They've seen most of the teams. Playoffs is another thing if you get nervous. But Heaps, I think, as the veteran on that back line, plays a big role in getting the unit to play as one.
Right. Of course, Chicago's getting some guys back, arguably. Conde is training, Thornton is training, even Cigaris is back training. So they're going to be getting some of their core players that were part of that run in the beginning of the season back as well.
It's easier to destroy than to create. So you have Lorenowitz and Showery Joseph in the midfield, Matt Reese in goal. I think New England will surprise people in this series.
The battle between Showery Joseph and Cuauhtemoc Blanco is going to be as fantastic as ever. That series starts on Saturday afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox Soccer Channel. That's Chicago at New England in the first game. Well, the other Eastern Conference playoff series includes a Western Conference team of all things. Real Salt Lake crossing over from the West into the East, and what do they get for that? A trip, a matchup against Columbus Crew, the Supporters Shield winners, the defending champions. But, Jason, Columbus in their first game, they have to go to altitude, where Salt Lake has a massive advantage, really.
Yeah, Salt Lake, one of the best home teams in MLS this year, 9-1-5. And when Columbus went there, they got shelled by Salt Lake. So you look at Salt Lake as a team with a lot of weapons going forward, and I think that's big because Columbus's defense has not been the same since they lost Chad Marshall. Now, could Chad Marshall come back for this game? Yes, that's been in the plans for them. But first game at altitude after not having played competitive games for a while, I think the advantage here is Salt Lake.
This is a very dangerous matchup for Columbus for all the reasons Jason spoke about. And they also have to get their mojo back. They've lost a couple of games. We always talk about how are you playing going into the playoffs, so they need to turn it around, Columbus.
Well, they should be getting Chad Marshall back, and he hasn't played for a while, but there's talk that he's going to be back and ready to go. Is that enough mojo for Columbus?
Well, the mojo all comes from Schelotto. He's the guy that pulls the strings, spreads the ball around. He's shown he's a winner. He's shown it again this season, but I think they're on a bad run. This is a tough matchup.
Their offense hasn't been the same, I think, in the second half of the season. They're a team that can create and can score goals. I think
they haven't.
Right, exactly. It plays to Columbus's advantage for these games to be tight. I think if Salt Lake can get it into kind of a run-and-gun game to some extent, they'll have the advantage. If they can play an open game, I like Salt Lake in the series.
Salt Lake will certainly have a lot of energy going into this after the big 3-0 win over Colorado. I, of course, am hoping that Columbus will win this because of the ET Cup. And we'll explain that in a second. Here's what's going on with the ET Cup. We are going to be picking games, one game, as we have all season long, but we're also going to pick a series. And if we call the series correctly, you'll get 3 points. If you call an underdog and they win the series, we're going to get 4 points. if you call a series incorrectly, -2. So all of a sudden there's some punishment going on
stakes
for
are
the
raised
wrong
for
stuff.
the playoffs.
Underdog meaning the lower seed.
Meaning the lower seed, yes. Well, last week, Jason was the only one that got it right. He actually called the score correctly, even on the LA-San Jose game.
I'm going LA 2-0 over San Jose. LA, I think they're going to win the West, and Donovan Ricketts, another shutout.
LA is not going to win the West. I think you're wrong, but it is San Jose, so you never know. So he jumped up to 10 points, tied now with Shep for the lead, and I'm just hanging back in behind the group, ready to make my move in a minute.
Good position.
Shep, I'm going to let you start first with your series and then the game for this week that you're choosing.
Well, my series, I've been with them all year. I'm picking the LA Galaxy over Chivas. I think they have better weapons. I think they're the better team. I think it'll be very close, but the LA Galaxy over Chivas.
In your game, what do you got?
Individual game. I like the Houston-Seattle matchup, but in game one, they're selling tickets. I like Seattle 1-0, first game over Houston.
They are selling a lot of tickets up in Seattle. Jason, what do you think? What do you have?
Shep went for the safe pick for the series with LA. I think most people's MLS Cup favorites. I'm actually going to do the same.
Oh, well,
So,
I was going to say, Jason's not stepping out.
which is not good news for LA, considering our record when we both picked the same game. But I am picking LA in the series over Chivas. I think they just have too many weapons for Chivas, and their defense is too good. I think for the individual game, if I know anything about the playoffs and MLS, it's that Chicago and New England are going to meet in the first round, and that they're going to tie their first game 0-0. So 0-0, Chicago, New England. I think that's going to be a low-scoring series, and they're going to start it off with goose eggs.
Jason loves picking the draws, doesn't he? Well, for the series for me, as I mentioned earlier, I went with Columbus beating Real Salt Lake. It's going to be tough in the altitude the first one, but I think Columbus will get it done, and Barros Schelotto will pick up his game the way he did last year in the playoffs as well.
Needs to.
He sure does. As an individual game, however, I'm going against you guys. I'm picking Chivas 2-1 over Los Angeles. Justin Braun scores 2 goals and then maybe an own goal on the other one because he's back helping defensively. Well, that's all we have for you this week on Act 3 and the playoffs.
Except we do have
one last thing. Hang on, I'll get there. The ET Guest Reporter Contest. We've been running it for the last month or so, and we're down to our finalists.
One last finalist.
Act 1 and Act 2, we talked about the first 2 finalists. Act 3's finalist is Michael Toole, also from Massachusetts, from Cambridge, Massachusetts, and he sent in something pretty funny.
Yeah, the Revs are representing here, getting into the playoffs in the last game of the season, and now 2 people in the Guest Reporter Contest.
Well, we will announce the winner next week, and he will join us at MLS Cup in Seattle toward the end of the season. But that's all we have for you this week. Enjoy the playoffs, and we'll take it around.